What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about Max Holloway. He just fought Ilia Topuria at UFC 308, and he has officially announced that he is moving up to the lightweight division and is targeting a return at International Fight Week. Max Holloway just suffered his first knockdown inside the UFC, which happened to be a knockout versus Topuria in that third round by fault, and truly that was an incredible knockout by Topuria. But Max Holloway's illustrious career in the UFC featherweight division and a couple fights at lightweight are truly, outlining himself as a whole. But I do think that Max Holloway going up to the lightweight division is going to be a good move for his entirety of his career. And I kind of want to break that down today in this video. But if you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always and further notified about UFC content dropping and releasing every single day. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video talking about Max Holloway returning at UFC International Fight Week in the lightweight division. So it just came out recently, coming right from Max Holloway himself. He says that he is going to wait till UFC International Fight Week to go up and move up to the UFC lightweight division from featherweight. As we all know, Max Holloway was the UFC featherweight champion at one point, and genuinely he has done some things that no other featherweight has done inside the organization. He beat Jose Aldo a couple times. Yes, he wasn't able to get past Alexander Volkanovski, but when you look at the majority of the UFC featherweights that have been there, he's beat the Brian Ortegas, the Yair Rodriguez's, the Arnold Allens, every good featherweight in the division, he has gone out there and beat, except Volkan Ilia Topuria now. But Max Holloway, I think, considering that he's getting a little bit older, and even though he might be young at the age of 32, he's still kind of getting up there in age, and considering that he's fought in the UFC for like 12 or 11 years at this point, I do think that moving up to the lightweight division is going to be something beneficial for him. I think the most impactful thing is, yes, those guys hit harder up there, but the less stress on your body during the weight cut and everything like that leading up to fight week is going to be something that truly allows Max Holloway to be a better individual in the fight, being able to take shots better, being able to throw and have more cardio in every little exchange. I think it's just going to be something that really helps him out a lot if he really attacks that UFC lightweight division. Now, who could possibly Max Holloway fight? Because there's a ton of UFC lightweights currently who are above him and who aren't scheduled to fight. I know that there has been rumors that Dustin Poirier has a fight actually signed. I'm not 100% who that's going to be. I know Justin Gaethje says that he wants to return in maybe March. Dan Hooker still doesn't really have a timeline. So really, who could be a big thing for Max Holloway to come back? I think that we got a couple options here. First off, I do think that the trilogy with Dustin Poirier and Poirier's retirement fight would be an incredible thing. Poirier is 2-0 in those matchups, but I truly do think that Holloway going in there, especially since he didn't have the proper opportunity to bulk up against Poirier in that second fight, I really think would be something to help him. Now, you look at Holloway's proper bulking versus Justin Gaethje. He went out and had the performance of the night, absolutely mauling him in that aspect, going in there and just demolishing him at UFC 300. But also, I truly do think that another fight that would be amazing to be made is the loser of Chandler and Oliveira, especially if it's Charles Oliveira losing that fight, because I do think that Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway, that pushes up Holloway to fight someone above the rankings. As well, I think it truly allows Holloway to get his rematch at Charles Oliveira. I know that he won that first fight, but it was off a weird injury, I believe. It was like a shoulder injury from Charles Oliveira, and it ended very, very weird. I know the fight was in Canada too, but that was a very odd time, and I do think that Max Holloway would love to get that fight back with Charles Oliveira, considering that Oliveira has established himself in the UFC lightweight division after being a featherweight fighting Max Holloway there. But truly, Charles Oliveira is still one of the best UFC lightweights on planet Earth, and I think that he is going to win that fight with Michael Chandler, so this won't even be relevant. But I do think that the other fight that would make a lot of sense would be if Islam Makhachev beats Arman Tsarukyan. You do Tsarukyan versus Holloway for a number one contender bout, possibly in the UFC lightweight division. I know that Arman Tsarukyan is a very good, determined, and just absolute stud of a prospect in the lightweight division, and I do think that that would be a very good fight to put up Max Holloway against, considering that Max Holloway is kind of like an older person. You know, he kind of has been in the UFC for a very long time, even though his age isn't, old. 32 isn't an old UFC fighter, but considering that he has fought for such a very long time, there are miles on the clock, and genuinely that's something that is going to impact him for the future part of his career. So I do think that Charles Oliveira is a solution, or a possible thing that could happen. I do think that Dustin Poirier is a possible fight that can happen, and I do think that Arman Tsarukyan is a possible fight that can happen if Islam beats Arman, because I do think that they would give Islam a rematch if Arman beat him, considering that they already fought before. Islam got that win, and I think that doing the trilogy between Arman and Islam would be only the right thing to do. Max Holloway is just such an incredible fighter. Like, he goes out and does everything that he needs to do in the organization. He won. He was on a 3-fight win streak after losing to Volkanovski at UFC 276, and even then he was on a win streak. Like, Max Holloway is one of the best, most consistent UFC fighters the organization has ever seen, and genuinely, it's something that really needs to get repaid, especially when his move up to lightweight, fighting one of these big stars. I think the UFC lightweight division is one of the deepest divisions currently in the organization without Max Holloway. And I think if you go in there and add him, it's only going to make the division so much deeper over time. And I think that's something that not a lot of individuals are really seeing, considering that Max Holloway is such a good fighter. He has beaten Justin Gaethje in the UFC lightweight division already, considering that fight was at UFC 300, and that was an absolute barn burner of a fight. I think if you do the rematch with either Charles Oliveira or Dustin Poirier, considering that they're those big prominent names inside the UFC lightweight division, or you give him Arman Tsarukyan coming off a loss to Islam Makhachev, those would all be very valid and incredible fights. Like I said, Max Holloway's career, I do believe, is ahead of him in the UFC lightweight division. I do think that Holloway is one of, if not the best UFC featherweights of all time, and truly, I do think that his time is rightfully so done there. I know he wanted to regain his title to be someone to say that he was the longest, the time between championships was the longest for Max Holloway, which would have been an incredible thing. He's been so good for such a long time, but I do think, like I said, moving up to the lightweight division, getting some new blood up there, fighting some guys who are above him, like Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan, or even fighting guys who are a little bit below him, or making some massive fights in the future. Someone like Dan Hooker, I think, is right below him. Someone like Rafael Fiziev is right below him. Someone like Renato Moicano is a little bit below him, and even Paddy Pimblett coming up through the rankings. I do think that Max Holloway is going to be someone who has a chance to compete for a title in the UFC lightweight division, is one of the best fighters the UFC currently has, genuinely, considering that he is just such an amazing fighter who has done so many different things, has the most significant strikes in the UFC by the widest of margins. Max Holloway is an absolutely prominent key figure, a fighter that all fans love to see, and I cannot wait to see who he goes up against at International Fight Week in 2025, yet also be able to truly go in there and show that why Max Holloway's career isn't finished, especially if he moves to the lightweight division. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think down below in the comment section about Max Holloway's move up to the UFC lightweight division. I truly do think that Max Holloway, noticing that he needs to make a change, considering that he has fought the who's who at 145, and I truly do think that him going up to the lightweight division is going to be a move for him in his career that is going to be a very, very good option for him. Max Holloway is one of those fighters who's been inside the UFC. He's kind of dabbled in the lightweight division a little bit with the Dustin Poirier fight and the Justin Gaethje fight. He looked really good in both of those, ultimately going 1-1 in those. But I truly do think that if he gets the proper, adequate time to bulk up, to kind of gain a little extra muscle while not taking away that speed, it's going to be something that is truly one of the most deadly combinations inside the UFC lightweight division. I hope the fight they make is Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier 3. For Dustin Poirier's retirement fight, and an incredible fight to headline or co-headline in a 5-round war between these two individuals. I would love to see that fight. Also, a fight with Charles Oliveira would be amazing. A fight with Arman Tsarukyan, Rafael Fiziev, Dan Hooker. Those would all be amazing fights for Max Holloway. But ultimately, we'll see what Dana White kind of wants to do. I do think that Max Holloway going up, like I said, is going to be a good thing. I do think it's going to be something that is going to be able to extend his career a tiny bit longer than it would be if he was only fighting at featherweight. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the UFC content. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always and fully notified about UFC content releasing every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.